You're listening to the Desert Moon Hockey Podcast with Matt and Rich.
Also, I'm tired because I actually have to work big boy hours again, and I want to go cry. What is up, guys? AZ Sports Guy here, Matt. Apparently 30 as shit looking guy. So, y'all are just savage on my Twitter because I apparently have been, like, sort of mistaken for, like blending in with the college kids when I'm hanging out, you know, just wearing my ASU hoodie. So, I'm in the community rink hallway walking down because I got the privilege. I clocked out, and they let me go watch, a couple minutes of the game, then I had to leave. So I was going back down the walkway, and I took a selfie. I'm like, oh, do I look like a college kid or 30 as shit? And guess what? It's like 78% I look 30. And like one of the people said, college age but ugly, but it's fine. All I know is y'all are savage, and there you go.
We're on the wrong side of it, Matt. I'm next podcast, I will be 27. What the hell is going on? It's all downhill from here.
It just Birthdays. 3 months, I'll be 27.
Yep.
I will have been married for 3 years in 2 months. Just under 2 months, actually. All right, I remember when the bottom fell out. I was at my lowest point, or I think it was around 2018, and it was around when I started the channel, but I'm living with my dad in a loft. Like, I was sleeping on an air mattress in a loft, and I had my Xbox One because nobody would buy it without a wireless controller. I only had a wired controller, a little TV, and my Chihuahua. And that's it, and we're hanging out doing whatever. I remember having panic attacks at night. And I'm like, oh, you're only 21, it's fine. It's been almost 5 years! Are you kidding me?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God, I'm old. I got 3 more years to decide if I'm going to cave and have kids. Because I don't want to have a kid past 30. I'm going to be too old to, like, play sports or do anything with them. So I'm like, that's the hard cutoff. I don't want kids, but, like, if I change my mind, the hard cutoff is 30. My dad had me when he was 30. That is the hard cutoff. If I hit 30, chopping the balls off. We're not going forward with this children thing.
Yep. What did you do aside from getting bullied on Twitter over your week? Anything productive? Did you do anything?
I had some downtime, so I have notes ready for like 3 videos, including I was writing the World Juniors notes for the Coyotes participants, and that led to I was going to look up every single first-round draft pick, look at their World Juniors, and see how it translated to the NHL. Instead, I am now going through, I'm still in 1996, every single individual draft pick that's played at least one NHL game, all right, looking at their World Juniors and then comparing to what they did the rest of their career. I'm on Robert Esch. That is the player I am on when I left, and wow, I'm fun at parties. Yeah, everyone, I work in Tempe. I'm an ASU boy. Make sure to invite me out to your parties. I'll definitely entertain. Other than that, I've got to play a few more video games. I recently bought my brother-in-law's old Xbox 360 off him for $100. So now I'm just kind of playing Skyrim again, but this time with worse graphics and pretending I'm young again. And I also got a new Wii, and I'm playing Wii Sports again because I'm not irrelevant, I swear.
Okay.
What about yourself, Richie? Why don't you tell the people about your little excursion today?
I can tell you about my battle scars. I'll get to that in a second. I started off my week this week with getting very ill with whatever the seasonal flu is that's coming around, so you can probably hear it in my voice. It has been a hell of a ride. Pretty much 4 days of just being absolutely garbage. Day 1 it was like pain and nausea. Day 2 was like throat dying and can't even swallow. Day 3 was my sinuses were completely jacked up to the point where my eyes would just like routinely cry nonstop. It was not fun. It was not fun at all, but I'm finally like out of that hell and slowly making my way back to being alive again. And of course, I ordered my tires for my quad. This is a ongoing week-by-week thing. I'm sure people are hearing me talk about this quad. And they're like, oh, God, more stories about it. But I finally got the tires because the tires are like 20 years old on it. They've been sitting a long time. I mean, they're completely dry rotted to heck. And I'm trying to go take these tires off, and these tires are not coming off. They are not coming off. And I'm going, what is going on? And so long story short, I said screw it, and I took a sawzall and cut the rim of the tire, not the rim itself, but the wall of the tire, and I just figured I'd cut the Dremel into it and then just cut the wires so that it would just come off. And holy crap, was I greeted with a just pile of fuzzy moss inside this rim. It was pretty gross. I was not ready for that, but I found out why it was like dry rot welded onto the rim. And that would be the reason why. So I'm trying to clean this thing up. I finally get all the rubber off of it, so it's just rim. And I'm looking at all this rust. I'm like, well, this can't stay, so I got to clean this off. And I'm using a wire wheel. It's something you attach to a drill, and it just spins. It helps cut all the rust off. It's inside metal, so it doesn't need to be pretty or smooth or anything like that. Just it'll get the job done. And I'm spinning this damn thing, and I have it next to my legs because like this rim, I don't really have anywhere else to hold it. And the wire wheel's going, and it slips. And I was wearing pants, but the pants didn't help because it caught the end of the pants, rolled my pants up, and completely ground my leg up. So I've got a nice wound on my leg. I'm not going to show it just because, YouTube, I'm sure, will demonetize.
It's not family friendly.
Yeah, demonetize whatever we have.
Advertiser friendly, Richie.
But yeah, ground up my leg. It wasn't too bad. It's no worse than like skinning your knee really bad. And then I did the same thing to my wrist because, couldn't learn my lesson the first time. So I can show this one from far away. Yeah, did it to my wrist as well. Oops. That was how my week is gone though.
There you go, boys.
Dying from flu, dying from wire wheel. But those tires are finally on, so that's a good thing.
Dude, I don't know. You're a lot more useful than I am with stuff like that. I mean, all the tools I need are at work, and other than that, I have a tool bag I keep in my trunk that has like my old low voltage cabling stuff, electrical stuff, all my old tools. But like, I don't know if you noticed this, but I was at Walmart the other day with my brother-in-law. We were just kind of messing around while my wife and her mother were doing whatever, and I was so oddly, like, I joked to my wife, said, you don't know how oddly aroused I am by that, but obviously I'm just, like, more, like, curious and, like, oh, I should buy that, even though I have no use for it. I'm, like, looking at sawzalls, looking at
my wife,
wire strippers, and,
it's
like,
funny
because sets.
my wife goes to Michael's, and I have to pull her hand through the store, and then she's like, why can't we look at this? Why can't we look at that? But then we go to like a Home Depot, and I'm doing the same thing with tools. She's like, all you do is look at tools. I'm like, yeah, well, all you do is look at knitting stuff. So screw off, man. We have our own hobbies.
This meme I saw. It's like, oh, for Mother's Day, make sure to buy her flowers and chocolate and all this other stuff. Then it's like, for Father's Day, buy him an effing tool.
Yep. Yeah, it's all I got for Christmas. Actually, I don't even think we talked about my Christmas gifts. Because we had that guest on.
Because we had Trav on after, and you didn't. I do mine on Christmas Eve. That's when I think we recorded it. So you didn't know what you got yet. What'd you get?
I got a whole bunch of stuff. I got a vise that I could actually put on my bench, which I just installed the other day. I got tire spoons for those tires. Let's see, organizers for my drill bits. Just a bunch of organizers for everything because I'm an organized snob. I like to organize everything. Grease gun. God, why am I drawing a blank on all the tools? Oh, Dremel. I got a Dremel. Yeah, and that was kind of really it. I think that's all I can remember off the top of my head. A bunch of other stuff too, like a little cleaner thing, like a handy dandy little cleaner for your keyboard. So it's got all these cleaning bits and stuff, and you can pull your keys off and clean and stuff.
Richie, are you aware how 30 you sound right now?
Well, that's why I got the mustache, right? Like, no, I
your mustache makes Austin Matthews look like an adult.
yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie, this mustache is pretty bad. I just shaved, and I was just like, you know what? We'll do something like fun and creative. And man, no, I cannot be fun and creative. Neck beard for life, I guess. Weak chin society. Weak chin neck beard society.
The only reason it doesn't look like I have one is the beard. And I keep that beard because I'm a man who also just doesn't care about shaving his face until it's too long.
A very insecure man. It's okay. We're all insecure.
I'm not insecure. All right. Ask me why I have a mark at 2.5 inches on the tape measure. Inflation.
Oh, there you go.
Anyway. If you've been still listening for whatever reason, like, subscribe, follow, all this stuff. Leave a comment about how...
Did you know that we're a hockey podcast?
You're confused what we're talking about, and if, hey, get to the hockey stuff. So we'll get to the hockey stuff, but make sure to do all that. If you're listening audibly... I don't think we're on Audible, but you can do Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all that. I've actually had people tell... on Twitter, they will listen on Apple Podcasts. I think my wife listens on Spotify, or else we get into a giant argument because she's not supporting my dreams. So we have at least 2 listeners consistently.
That's good. I don't know why you're listening, but hey, thank you for listening. Joking,
right, so
joking. Yeah. What do you?
A brain teaser. So.
Okay. Wait. Just to give some guidance of what's going to go on in these episodes, we have a brain teaser that Matt's come up with. He's going to try to get me to guess it. And then also, I just wanted to note we will be talking a little bit about the World Juniors and not really much about the Coyotes because Coyotes are in the tank for Bedard. So, woohoo!
They're in the right direction. Look, I love when they're competitive. I love when they win. But you guys already know, Connor Bedard beat me down. I did a good job holding out for, I think, 2.5 months before I went on full Bedard. But it's like, hey, I have a full Bedard right now. So we're going on the Bedard watch. I want them to lose every game the rest of the year. And I would be a fan of that. Anyway, so I have quite a bit of time at work. On games, you're on call. You got to make sure you're available if something happens. So it's a lot of making sure you're where you need to be. So I just bring a notebook with me and I take notes. And I got a new trade tree for you. And no one guessed it. I put it up last night. No one guessed it by the end of the ASU game. So I'm going to see if you can. And then have some shameless advertising for AZ Sports Guys. This will probably be up tomorrow or the day after or whatever. So.
Okay.
It's a trade. Here are the 4 clues, and I want you to guess it. Number 1, it's a 2017 trade, which I thought was going to give it away immediately, but okay. 2017 trade. There is an ASU hockey connection. Arizona still has 2 assets from that trade tree, and there are multiple Tucson Roadrunners involved. What is the trade?
Okay, I got to go back to 2017.
All right.
That was Hjalmarsson.
Well, remember,
that was Ranta.
Between 2015 and 2017, we're getting rid of the rest of the old core. The 2012 core, Bodker, Hansel, all them, we're getting rid of all of them. The last of them are leaving, except for OEL.
I'm trying to remember. We traded for Hjalmarsson that year. Mike Smith?
How did you get that?
Really? Did I get it?
Yes, that is it.
Damn. Okay.
All right. Do you want me to? Just
I was just thinking like people. I was just thinking people that we got rid of. I was like, man, who did we get rid of? So
right, here.
Okay.
I'm gonna go grab the tree real quick.
I felt like we traded Mike Smith and got like nothing. So I'm really curious to see how this trade tree turns out.
So right here, I got this large video notes thing, and I'll just do random things in here. All right, literally. All right, just to give you a brief idea of what I do with my free time. So right here is a list of all of the ECHL players that there were Coyotes draft picks, Coyotes players that played in the ECHL, and also Phoenix Roadrunners that made it to the NHL that came from the ECHL. I made a list. I had to shuffle through 730 players, and I got it down to like 50. Anyway, that's what I do with my time. So you guys know I am dedicated to the cause. So that original trade is Mike Smith for Chad Johnson, Brandon Hickey, and a 2018 third-round pick. Now, off the top of your head, I've already given away the ASU connection. Can you guess the ASU connection? And also, what do you think is the largest branch of this trade tree? Individual asset.
Okay, so Brandon Hickey, did we even sign him? I don't think we did.
No.
So he's
never played
gone.
with the Coyotes. Mm-hmm.
Is it Johnson? It's got to be Johnson.
Nope.
It's not, huh?
No. So Johnson and Brandon Hickey both got traded, and Hickey's trade did lead to Hudson Fasching, so one of the Roadrunners I was talking about. But
Okay.
no. So Hickey is the older brother of current ASU Sun Devil Tanner Hickey.
Oh, okay.
That's your ASU connection, all right?
All right.
So, here's the entire tree. You're not going to be able to read all the names. There's a reason for it, all right? And that is all associated with that third-round pick.
Wow. A lot going on there, huh?
That third-round pick, the current asset we have is a draft pick in 2024. And it was from a trade I don't even remember being covered, and the trade happened last calendar year.
Okay.
So there you go. That's your little bamboozled for you. I was surprised no one immediately guessed Mike Smith. I was surprised no one immediately just Googled the trades, because if you look up Brandon Hickey, he's standing right there. The second I saw Tanner Hickey, same thing with there's a kid named Ness on the ASU Sun Devils. Anytime I see a player's name that I recognize, I immediately look up to see if they're related to someone. I was looking up to see if he was related to Aaron Ness. He's not, but that's literally how my brain operates. The first thing I'll do is, are you related to someone? Like, is it Jackson Niedermeyer? I think he's Scott's kid. He plays for ASU. You wouldn't know because he's been injured most of the year, but he's playing for him. Who was it? Mario Lemieux's kid.
Yep.
That played for ASU, and he played 1 year, and everyone was super disappointed, even though he was fine. So it's like, that's how my brain works. Anyway, so good guess. I'm surprised no one got it, and now I'm gonna have to rush to get the video done tonight, so that way I can capitalize on this brand synergy.
There you go. There you go. So if you're watching this podcast and you for some reason don't know who AZ Sports Guy is, go to his YouTube channel. You'll find the video going up next couple of days.
Literally, no one knows who AZ Sports Guy is. I could try to I've tried to contact the Tucson Roadrunners on 3 or 4 different occasions throughout my entire YouTube career, and have never even gotten an email response.
All right, one day, you keep the hope alive.
Straight up, like, they can come to me tomorrow and say, "Oh, we'd love to work with you." And I'm just gonna flip them off. I'm like, you didn't care for the last 5 years when I was constantly, trying to come up and get into the point that I am. But if you want to capitalize in the audience after I made it, no, I'm not associating with you. Like, I'm a petty arsehole that's been holding on to that grudge for a while. Like,
okay.
No, I still love the Roadrunners. I'll go watch them every now and again, but at this point, like, I wouldn't work with them at all, because, like, anyone can watch this and be like, "Oh, who are you?" Well, exactly, that's fine. But at the same time, if I made the effort 3-4 times, and I can't even get a, "Hey, you're just not really big enough for us to work with," like an even acknowledgement, like, you're not worth my time at this point.
Yep. Yeah, fair enough.
Nobody watches me for Roadrunners content. Literally no one. I do a 1 video a month, and it maybe gets 50 views after the entire month is up.
Well, I don't know what to tell you. I'm just like, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's Roadrunners.
Yeah,
it's AHL.
What it is. It is what it is.
Yep.
I'd rather go cover the Fed. At least then I can get some blood on me. Make some good vlog content.
There you go.
Start every single episode off. "Oh, who's this guy punching me this week?" You'll find out if you watch to the end.
Yep. All right, you want to move into some World Junior talks, some
Yes. So I know
junior worlds talks of the
I
junior
know I
leagues.
spoiled it for you. All right.
Yep.
I spoiled it for you. But if Connor Bedard did not exist, who do you think, without looking at the stats, take what I told you earlier out of your head, who would you think would be the leading point scorer in this tournament if Connor Bedard did not exist?
Well, I would say there's a lot of good talent on Canada, right? So, in my head, I would say it would probably, even regardless of Bedard, it would have had to been somebody on Canada. Like, just looking at all the talent that was on that team. But I do know the answer, so I'm gonna let you get your moment of shine here to say it. So take it away.
One, Logan Cooley. He had Team USA. First off, if Bedard didn't exist, Joshua Waugh would be tied for third with Logan Stankoven.
Yep.
So if Bedard didn't exist, they'd be tied for third. Logan Cooley, number 2 overall. 7 games, 7 goals, 7 assists, 14 points, scoring at a 2-point per game clip. He looked phenomenal. Everyone that's covering it, all the highlights I saw on my timeline, is just gushing about Logan Cooley. And this is looking like not only to be a better and better draft pick, but it's also just to throw a little bit of shade. Not really, but just a little bit of shade. Where do you think Shane Wright finished?
Well, that's tough because because he's more defensively responsible, right? Like that's what people are touting him as. So he's got to be like probably what 8? Not even close.
17th.
Wow.
He is technically, you could say he's tied for 16th, but he had 4 goals, 3 assists, 7 points in 7 games. David Juracek right behind him, 3 goals, 4 assists, 7 points in 7 games. So it's like he also still has that offensive upside. He's supposed to still be an offensive player, just really defensively responsible. But Logan Cooley right there is looking phenomenal. Jimmy Snuggerud, hopeful future Coyote. Then Dylan Guenther is number 6, 7 goals, 3 assists, 10 points, including the golden goal. And the rest of the Coyotes don't even show up on here. I wrote them down off to the side. In the exact order, it goes Julian Lutz around 114th, Adam Zlinka, I think, at 134, and then Sam Lipkin, I think, around 150.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely like a very surprising showing from Logan Cooley, and I only watched highlights from Twitter and stuff like that. Unfortunately, I didn't really get to sit down and watch any of the games. I've just been busy. So unfortunately, I haven't been able to get much time looking, but the highlights I saw looked really good. Very, very solid highlights, and man, is Dylan Guenther, Logan Cooley, and Connor Bedard going to be looking like a crazy line in the future for the Coyotes.
All I know is that when you look at this young talent coming up, and I will stick to this, because apparently, you had, I don't know if it was Dubas himself, but you did have Toronto scouting that Philadelphia-Arizona game. And a good friend of mine, or at least at the very least a good acquaintance of mine, mutual on Twitter, his name is Andrew. I'm forgetting his last name right now. If you look at my Twitter right now, over the last day, you'll see me retweet his article, and that's where all those outlandish trades were. That's what I was on about this morning. I was having a little bit of fun with it. But he was looking at a couple of players that they could have been scouting, and he brought up, for some reason, he didn't bring up McBain, which is fine by me, because McBain is staying a Coyote right there in the bottom 6. That is where he belongs in Arizona. But he brings up guys like Michelli. Pretty sure he brought up Krauser, brought up someone else, and I'm like, look, with how good this young talent is, so long as it accurately projects, so there is that asterisk. This is not me saying pull the trigger right now. That's stupid. That's short-sighted. What I am saying is with the kind of talent they have in this system right now, if Austin Matthews came out and said he wants to trade. Like, the second, that last year kicks in, yep, I'm not re-signing, trade me. And let's just say that ideal scenario, I only want to go to Arizona so the value drops a little bit. I would not mind throwing in Michelli. I love Michelli. I am a Michelli diehard. All right, him and Garland are some of my favorite players to come up on this team in the last 15 years.
Yeah.
Literally some of the best, some of my favorite. But with how well they've drafted, even guys like Julian Lutz looked really good in the World Juniors. In fact, for a while, he was actually one of the main reasons why they were ranked second overall in terms of their production as a core for Coyotes prospects versus whatever. And they finished number one. Obviously, Cooley helped carry that, but Cooley, Guenther, and Lutz were very good throughout this entire tournament. So it's the draft picks are looking good.
Yeah.
Pretty good depth coming up. You still got to keep it up. You cannot fill off the gas. You can't do some big all-in trade right now. Nothing like that. But what I am saying is if that scenario happened, I would not mind moving on from Matias Michelli because I think we have a very good problem to have. It's okay. These kids are looking good right now. Let's pretend they project out to where we need them to be. They're all in that top six. Where the hell do you fit everyone? And Matias Michelli is playing very well as the top sixer. Do you think you'll still get that kind of production out of a middle six or bottom six version of Matias Michelli?
Probably not, unless Andre Tournier keeps running this weird 11 forward 7D thing.
He needs to stop that. I love Andre Tournier. This is the only thing I hate about him. And it's like, obviously, if you watch me long enough, you'll know I find at least one thing I hate about every coach. Tippett, he was not good with young talent. He was better with established players that knew their roles. Rick Tocchet was just terrible. And then Andre Tournier, I don't like this 11-7. I was talking to one individual in the mullet, he kind of gave me a perspective of why he kind of likes that. I know you brought up kind of you don't have that real minute eater that on that defensive core, so I guess it does make sense. But at the same time, I still don't like it, and I don't want to fall on those excuses because what if that becomes a thing where it's like, oh well, it's worked so far, we'll just keep doing it, and I don't like that possibility. So I'm just going to treat it as I just don't like it regardless. So. Also, depending on what the trade looked like, I would not mind if Krauser was somewhere involved, depending on what's coming back our way. Meaning, if that were the scenario, you got to re-sign Nick Ritchie for your bottom six. If that were not the scenario, get Nick Ritchie the hell out of here, get a third-round pick, whatever you can for him, and continue building these assets. Because as long as they keep drafting well, I think... like. I still stand by what I said. They didn't really need to start the rebuild. They were still fine. Like, that prospect pool got very thin, but they were going to be fine with just 1 year of a thin prospect pool as long as they drafted well, and they've done that. So it's like, just I can believe in this system, in this management, and GMBA because the production is already there. Dylan Guenther is already an NHLer. All right, Dylan Guenther alone, as much as, again, I'll bang on about it one more time. I love Connor Garland. He was my favorite player. I think I have 2 of his jerseys sitting over there, and I'd get a third if I could. I've actually been contemplating getting a Vancouver jersey for a while. That's Connor Garland. I just don't want to pull the trigger because I'd rather buy Arizona jerseys, but, like, literally my favorite player. I was mad at the concept of trading him away.
Yep.
Dylan Guenther was 110% worth it.
Yep. Oh yeah, and getting rid of the contracts, getting rid of Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Like, dude, that freed up so much money. Like, and you look at what's going on right now. That trade single-handedly cost Vancouver their captain. They can't re-sign Bo Horvat because of that contract. They literally are going to lose their captain, a guy who is like on a torment pace right now for goals. Obviously, career year in a contract year. Go figure. That's like every contract year. But nevertheless, it still shows that he has the scoring ability. Whether he can keep it, year over year, obviously not. But that knack, that nature, at a normal pace, he absolutely can do. And they're going to lose it because they have Oliver Ekman-Larsson on the D. And I'm wearing an Oliver Ekman-Larsson jersey. So, and I can tell you, I love the guy, but he's not worth that contract. Not even remotely. Not anymore.
Great person. Mm-hmm. He seemed to be good in the locker room. Like, the guys liked him. I can't talk about his leadership. I can tell you what I observed on the ice. He wasn't a very good on-ice leader. He looked a lot more like he was trying to be a Teppo type, where Teppo was a little more quiet, lead by example. The problem was OEL's skill had deteriorated so much. I don't think he had the ability to do that, and he didn't have, at least in my mind, my perspective. I'm not in the locker room, but from my perspective, he didn't have that kind of boisterous personality and that voice in the room that would be able to be a Kachuk or even a Donor, because Donor would. He's not going to be like Kachuk getting in your face and throwing chairs. I've asked around. You were standing next to me with that one source that I was asking, and I'm like, is that true? Whenever, like my dad was saying, you're down in the third, second intermission, the doors to the locker room were closed, and you could hear the screaming from Big Walt coming from inside.
Yep.
So he just didn't have that. He wasn't what he used to be. And as much as I love the guy, I hate the player. And getting out from under that contract is one of the best things possible. I know it hurt a lot of the fans. I was kind of looking at it like, you probably remember that video. I'm like, they shouldn't re-sign him. He's no longer worth it. And they ended up re-signing him anyway. They had to give up, essentially, Connor Garland to get rid of the contract and take back 3 guys that were never going to play another season in an Arizona uniform.
I will say, though, at the time of that signing, there was stipulation that he could have turned it around. There was a big gamble, obviously, but there was the ability that he could have turned it around. It's just that playing through injury after injury cost him his mobility, and that's essentially what happened to him. Because the hands are still there, the shot's still there. It's just the mobility's gone. The mobility is just torched. It's a he can't really compete as well anymore because of the lack of mobility. And so I will say that I actually had a question for you if you want to move on to another thing.
Yeah, go for it. All
right. So you may have said this already. You were kind of cutting out when we were talking about the Matthews thing. What would your trade package be potentially to take on Austin Matthews? Because I saw you post this a little bit of a memery on Twitter, but let's actually bring this into the podcast a little bit here.
All right. So again, I'm going off the assumption he's already told them no, I'm not re-signing, and I want to play in Arizona, because obviously, unless they are forced to trade him, you're not trading Austin Matthews. Unless you're forced to trade him, you're not trading Connor McDavid. It's just, you don't do it. So it has to be under that assumption. And even though the value does go down a little bit, because look at the Kessler thing, whenever you only give one option, that team is going to take advantage of it. But it's still Austin Matthews. You're not getting away with a steal. All right, it's going to cost you.
Yeah.
So Matias Pacelli, obviously, you need to replace some production. It definitely lowers the cap hit. I don't mind throwing in Lawson Krause, because also we want to make sure we still have cap space for other players moving forward. So again, love Krauser, but I would be willing to throw him in the deal. Other than that, any other person I would be thinking about is, depending on what the cap situation would be. I think Matthews makes, is it 12 or 10 million per season?
12 million, I think. I think it's 12 million.
I know it's at least 10. So maybe depending on if Chychrun is gone yet, I wouldn't mind throwing Chychrun in there, because Chick doesn't want to be here. Now, an Austin Matthews trade could make him change his mind, but whenever they were rocking it at the mullet and they were in a playoff spot, even Craig Morgan reported he still wants to be traded. So it wasn't enough to change his mind. It sucks, but it is what it is. So I wouldn't mind that being the central package. I just don't know how many firsts I'd want to throw in there, because obviously I'm not touching a 2023 first. You're not getting that out of me.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't mind throwing in a 2024. I know they're going to be like, oh, well, it should be multiple firsts. But it's like, we're also running under the assumption that he said, I'm not re-signing with you and I only want to go here. Because, like, who's going to give top dollar value to someone that's like, yeah, I know that I'm going to lose him in a year. Like, yes, any team that wants to make, let's just say Florida, right? Say Florida, for example, they want to make a cup run next year. They have no problem renting Austin Matthews.
Yeah.
They're still not going to give you top dollar value. They're going to give you some value, but you ain't getting top dollar value. So,
yeah.
Anyway, that's kind of what my package would look like vaguely.
Would you say this would be an overpay? So your package plus you toss Nick Schmaltz in as well.
If they'll take Schmaltzy, but But I think at that point you wouldn't be able to add Chikrin because they're still up against the cap, so you kind of want to replace the salary for the salary and still give them more flexibility so it's not just right back up against. So if you want to, if they want Schmaltzy because he's a damn good player, and you put him on a line with Marner, you have him play with Nylander, with Tavares, he's going to produce. He produces well with Keller, and I love Keller. I think Keller can easily be a top 25 player in the league, considered. All right, right around there. I'm not going to get top 5 or top 10. I'm not going to be hyperbolic with you. Top 25, I think, is respectable and reasonable for Clayton Keller.
Yeah.
So you put him out there with still, again, Toronto still has a damn good roster. So a shakeup, and you put him there, he's going to produce. Connor Timmins didn't know what he was doing on the ice with the Coyotes. Immediately produces with Toronto.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't mind throwing Schmaltz in, Krauser, and Michelli.
I'm still reserved on the Connor Timmins. Obviously, he's looked really good for them so far. I will take the crow on that 100%. But one is injury, right? What's the timeline before he's injured again? And two, how long is it before he gets figured out and people start playing to his disadvantages? Because I remember when we traded, what's his name? P.O. Joseph, right? And sorry, my eye was just like spazzing out.
Except for he sucked. And I was telling everyone, because I was watching the rookie camps, and to me, at a rookie camp, if you are a top prospect in a system, not even just top 5 in the league, top 10, whatever, if you're a top prospect in someone's system, you should dominate every rookie camp. You should be consistently one of the best performing players. And I watch him that rookie camp, I'm like, dude, this kid sucks. And when they added him, it was the Kessel deal. They threw him in to go to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
It's like, I looked at that and I'm like, you guys got fleeced. Like, I know Kessel didn't work out here, but P.O. Joseph is not that good.
Well, the reason why I say that about P.O. Joseph is that when he came into the NHL for the first couple of weeks, he was really good. He had I don't remember the stats, but I'm just going to throw it out my ass here. It was in 11 games, he had 6 points or something like that, 6 or 7 points. Like he looked good, and then he got figured out, and this is where all my defensive abilities get abused.
I think what happens there with guys like Joseph, or I'll just say Timmins preemptively, and then I'll look like a scholar in 2 months, whatever. But it's like no one cares about Arizona on a national scale unless you're trying to acquire talent. So let's say Toronto, Nashville, and Florida were the 3 teams scouting Timmins. Okay, that's 3, and then you add Arizona. That's 4 teams out of 32 that know anything about this guy and how he plays at the NHL level. So it makes it easier for someone to kind of come out and have this big entrance and look electric. Then it also makes it easier to figure him out because now you're playing for a Toronto, you're playing for whatever, more eyeballs are on you, and hey, this guy is the hot guy of the week. Okay, let's get footage on him. I mean, how many times have we had a player come up, they look phenomenal for a year or two, and they just weren't that good, or their peak was very small, or they didn't adjust. So whatever was working for them, hey, it worked well for 2 years, but they chose not to adjust and they got phased out. It just comes down to how hard you're willing to work mixed in with your talent. So it's like, look, I have nothing against Timmins. I'm very disappointed in him as a Coyotes fan because it would have been cool to have him moving forward. But I also think we have some good defensive prospects to where it's like we would have had to get rid of him eventually anyway. I just, if he continues this path, I wish we would have got more for him, but it kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
But
yeah, obviously, I mean, congratulations, you got something, but to be fair, we were going to lose him in waiver pickup, so, it is what it is.
You waived Dyson Mayo. It's like, but you needed Timmins to, it was to stay down for a little longer?
Yeah.
They needed him to get more AHL games, so I think that's what it was, and or to recall him up regardless, who would have needed to waive him. So even if you waive Mayo instead, you still have to waive Timmins. Like whatever it was for Timmins that had to get waived, like it was to reactivate, wasn't it? It's a reactivation waiver or something like that.
I don't remember. I'll be honest with you, so I can't really quote anything on that. But it was something weird to where he was most likely going to be waived. I do know that. Whether it was just to get some games down the AHL or if it was to activate or whatever, it was looking like he was going to have to go through the waiver wire regardless. And because of that, they had to trade him for anything.
And when you're in a position like that, it's the same thing where, hey, I will only go to Anaheim. Well, Anaheim knows he's only going to come here. You have to get rid of him. I'll give you a 7th round pick and some magic beans. So it just kind of, it sucks. It is what it is, but, you can't win every single battle. And if he does well and he flourishes in Toronto forever and he have a good defenseman, congratulations. At least he found a home. At least he found a spot where he can excel.
Yep.
But, that's my mindset on any of that.
We've also given up a Michael Bunting. It is what it is.
But the thing with Bunting, I don't even think it was so much giving up on him. It was we were going into a rebuild and we knew he was good. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I wish, because again, I will stand by this, and I probably should do an entire video on it. They did not need to rebuild. It was not a requirement. Now, to go from a fringe playoff team to a potential Stanley Cup contender, yes, the full teardown was 100% necessary. Yeah. But when they were tearing it down, I'm looking at it like you still had a pretty good top 6. You still, hey, you get rid of this contract, bring this guy in. You can still adjust. You might be mediocre for a couple of years, but you can spend that time retooling your roster and getting where you need to be, and it could have worked. It also could have blown up in their face. They lose more value on these guys. The rebuild, it takes another 5 years. So it's like, you look at that, and it's like, yes, long term, they made the right decision, but I'm still in the camp they did not need to do that.
Yeah.
So it's like, you look at Bunting, he wasn't going to fit, he was 26 at the time, or 25, 26. He wasn't going to fit a rebuild. I highly doubt he wanted to do a rebuild. I know his comments afterwards were something along the lines of, it wasn't like I had anything against Arizona, it's just decided it was time to move on, which is fair. It's his right. He earned UFA. It's his right to move on. He goes to Toronto on a 2-year bet on yourself contract, and you're playing with guys like Matthews and Tavares and Nylander and Marner, and he's looking damn good.
I knew it was going to work out for him there. Like, it made total sense to me. We saw it at the end of the year where he was, what was it? It was Tyson Nash stat when he was with the Coyotes. He was on a faster point pace than Nathan McKinnon or something like that, right? When he was recalled. So we knew that he was going to be something special from the stint that we got to see of him in the NHL. And I do want to pause this real quick here and say, if you're enjoying what you're listening to, please give us a like, a follow, a subscription on whatever platform you're listening to us on. And if there's an ability to review, please review. So that helps the algorithm stuff and, actually gets us to be promoted within the algorithm.
Hey, there you go, the almighty algorithm. But
all hail the Hypnotoad. Yeah, that's.
But anyway, the Coyotes are 29th overall. They are 9 points ahead of Chicago. The tank is real, boys. We're getting back on track.
Yeah, we are nosediving in those standings real quick.
And I'm all for it. But I do want to talk very briefly about a little ASU. We don't do enough ASU hockey, so here we go. I want to talk some ASU.
Boring. I'm just kidding.
The Desert Hockey Classic was this weekend, and I think it's the 4th time they've had this tournament, and for the 4th one in a row, ASU would not have the opportunity to play in the championship game. So it's a little 4-team, 2-game each tournament. It was Michigan Tech, Arizona State Air Force, and Boston University, not Boston College. Boston College was the weekend before. That was a little confusion with some people around, but anyway. So this game, they lose to Michigan Tech 4-2. I think Michigan Tech was 16th ranked overall, and Boston University, who they did not face, was number 6. Yep, right here, number 16 and number 6. They lose this one by a final score of 4-2. So starts off with a shorthanded goal against by Evan Orr, then a shorthanded goal within the first minute of the second period to tie it up. Robert Mastrosimone from Schmaggy and Donor. Then you get 2 unanswered goals by the Huskies. It's now 3-1 Michigan Tech. We're getting late into that third period, and on the power play with about a minute and 40 seconds remaining, Mastro is second goal of the night. It's a 1-goal game. I was actually I was standing in the tunnel there watching and just kind of freaking out a little bit. It was a great goal. And they give the empty net goal because they couldn't generate anything. So you lose that first game 4-2, And then you come back against Air Force, who going into this was 6-11-2. They needed to get a big win, and I know it's like, yeah, it's a lower competition, but going into it, they're 10-12-0. And in order to make the tournament, I think Craig Morgan was reporting they have to win like the next 10 games, or they have to win like 10 of the next whatever, or 9 or 8 of the next 10.
Yeah.
It's something ridiculous. They have to play. So then this one's hard. It's a 2-0 game. I had to go to the bathroom, and when I went to the bathroom, Ryan Alexander scored to put ASU on the board with like 6 minutes to go in the second. And then Jack Judson scores the dagger. I think it's an empty net goal with 30 seconds remaining. 2-0 victory over Air Force. So for the third time in this tournament, ASU finishes third in the Desert Hockey Classic, and they improved to 11-12-0. And I was looking at the injury report, at some point tonight. Pretty much everyone on the scratch list was just injured. You have Ben Cross. I think he got injured in practice because he only had one appearance throughout the season. Jackson Niedermeyer. I think it's Jensen. It's either Jensen or Judson. I always get the two confused. One of them is injured. Matthew Copperud, Demetrius Kumunsis. Like this roster is like injured to hell.
Yeah.
So it's like it's going to be a really big stretch, and it's almost to the point where it's like, okay, well, are we looking forward to next season? Or are we looking forward to because the transfer portal, they did pretty good. They got the Jackson brothers. They both transferred over. I think they're both juniors. Master Simone, a senior, transferred over from Boston University. And then you had TJ Septenfelter transfer over. And TJ's been a brick wall. Has been one of the best players in the team, if not one of the three best. Him, Donor, and Mastro, my personal top 3 players in the team. And it'll be interesting to see, because this arena, and I guess this is something that should be logical, so I'll try to disconnect anything that I've heard within the arena, but should be enough to attract some more transfers, to attract some more kids to come and commit to Arizona State, because it's a nice brand new arena. On top of that, logically, I've never been told this, but logically, having an NHL team there does legitimize the ice a little bit. And also with how just universally loved the ice surface is, with how the ASU hockey program is on the rise. It's been on the rise for a while. It's going to be really interesting to see how many more big, gets they're going to be able to get. I mean, you're not going to steal, I know it's a pipe dream, you're not going to steal Cooley from Minnesota. I know he wants to come up to the NHL next year anyway, but they're not a program that's going to be stealing guys from the best, 3, 4, 5 schools. You're not getting guys from, in general, like Boston, even though you got Mastro. You're not getting guys from Michigan. You're not getting guys from Minnesota, but it'll be interesting to see what further improvements, because that arena really, it's a beacon, in my opinion. It's a really nice building, and it's a really nice college facility, and it's to be interesting to see what improvements they can make, and also if they can really salvage the season, because if some of these guys start coming back from injury, and they're stretching that depth, but even the depth isn't playing that bad.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to it, ultimately, where would you rather live? Would you rather party on Mill Ave, living in beautiful Arizona weather every winter, or would you rather be in the frigid tundra of Minnesota, right? Like, you get to decide, and ultimately, you're going to pull a lot of people just because of that. And when you get that winning atmosphere, which you eventually will, everybody will want to come. Like, that's just the way it is. Before the Suns have struggled, as of recent, when they were in that winning at culture, everybody wanted to come, right? Including Kevin Durant, who apparently
Kevin Durant literally had the Suns as his top destination. It was in Miami when he requested his trade. Yeah,
so like it makes sense. Like when a team's successful here, man, it is like the best place to be. It's sad that the city is struggled with winners, shall we say?
Because comes down to mostly having apathetic or terrible ownership. But I didn't say that out loud. I didn't. Well, I didn't criticize that loud.
Coyotes are making their way. They got what we think is a good owner. I think he's probably a pretty good owner. At the very least, he's stable owner. That's something that the Coyotes haven't had in almost 20 years, probably. Mm-hmm. So that's a good sign. We're investing in all the right areas, which is scouting and development, which is what this team needs. So,
they're
Who's
doing
not
it
to
right
say?
for once. But I was talking to a coworker of mine, kind of explaining him kind of the journey for the Coyotes and like how this organization's been ran. And it's like so they when they got that ownership group and it was a lot of minority owners that didn't really have a lot of money. They were pretending to keep that 2012 core alive for like 3 or 4 years. They were bringing
Yeah.
in a lot of veterans, like middling vets, to try to replace prime players.
Yep.
Pretend they're still competitive and they're lower mediocre. You're not going to get a top 5 pick, but you're still going to get a couple, decent picks here or there. But it's like then they kind of you move on from Domi and Duclair. You kind of come out of the rebuild with this core. You have Devo, Chikrin, Keller, guys like that. And then they pulled the trigger on the big moves, as exciting as it was. And I still stand by my excitement for the Kessel and the Hall trades. That was an exciting time to be a Coyotes fan because when you're looking at this core and you're actually watching them, you can see this core achieving great things. I still think they had the wrong coach. I think the coaching held them back. But it doesn't matter what the reason was. It still failed.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, they pulled the trigger on these big blockbuster trades just too early.
Yep.
So now you are finally rebuilding the proper way, and they should have done this honestly once they decided not to bring back Ray Whitney. They should have maybe that lockout season to 12-13. They should have gone for it one more time with a couple other guys, and then okay, it's not going to work. Blow it up. Tell Donor, hey, do you want to be traded? If not, we're going through one more rebuild and start it there. I have no idea where they'd be. I don't know, but that's what they should have done. They chose not to. So the market gets apathetic. The market gets apathetic to, another rebuild because haven't they been rebuilding for 10 years?
Yeah, well, this is the problem with not having good ownership because the problem is that ownership wants to just keep going for it because they need revenue. They need revenue. If you're like, no, we are going to be bad, don't show up, it's a good way to kill your revenue and then you're not going to have the team next year because you're out of money. There's I can't remember the saying. There's a saying in business that like if you hype something or you underhype something too early, it can like kill your business. And I actually have an example of this real quick. It's a gun company, of course. There was a gun company. I can't remember the name of them anymore, but they had this really cool idea for a gun. And their first iteration of gun, the slide was like aluminum or something like that. And they were selling this gun and they're like, yeah, this gun's pretty cool. And our version 2 is going to have like an all metal slide. I don't know. It was a small tweak to it though. It made V2 and everyone went, oh, that's cool. I really like V2. I'm going to wait for V2. And that's what everyone did. They waited for V2. All of V1, the sales dropped, right? Like an anchor the next month. And all of a sudden it's, oh, we can't pay our bills. We're going out of business. And V2 never came out because they killed their business. And it's a similar model. Like you can't, when you don't have the money to burn, you just have to keep going for it. And it's led to the incompetencies that, we've seen over the decade from the Coyotes, unfortunately.
And also, I worked at the Gila River Arena. I was working guest services. I even got this really cool position, essentially designed for me, where I was going around passing like the game notes to all around the press level. But when I was working out in parking for a little bit, I actually got to talk very briefly. I was where the little minority owners would come in on the side of the building, and they were all really nice people. The problem is they just didn't have the money they needed to run an NHL team. And the majority owner ended up buying, the majority stake and everything. Yeah. I forget his name. Please assist me on this. I keep saying LeBlanc, but I think I'm wrong.
Yeah. So there was LeBlanc as well, and then Barroway bought it out from the group of like 4. All
right, so
Ice
Barroway.
Arizona. Yeah. So Ice Arizona bought it from the NHL, and that was the group of like 12, and then they conglomerated a little bit to like 4. LeBlanc was the CEO, I think, at the time, and he was also an owner. And then Barroway was also in there, and then Barroway bought out everybody for 51%, I think. And he's still a minority owner, I believe.
He has like 5% left in the team.
Yeah,
it's a very
he's
small percentage.
He's got a little bit still though, and obviously now the majority owner is Morello.
So with Barroway. Side note, I've heard literally nothing good about the guy. I've actually heard stuff that I've been told specifically not to repeat, so I'm not going to here. But it's like it's pretty bad stuff about his character and some things that were going on. So it's like, we've never had good ownership, good stable. Because even Moyes before that went bankrupt, and obviously he cared more about Swift Trucking than he cared about the Coyotes. So it's been this long list of owners that don't have the money or are cheap as hell and won't spend the money, and then it's when you hit this point like with Barroway just didn't have the money again you would need to run this team, you're just kind of throwing anything at the wall. Okay, and it's like, yeah, they're great, exciting moves. Again, you got me excited, and I think it was the Kessel and Hall trades. It was right after Morello took over, so it's been essentially a sign of these big splash deals after they're kind of building this core up.
Yeah,
but it was too early. And it backfired on them. So it's like this time when they're finally doing it right and we can see the vision and it's already bearing fruit, and Bill Armstrong, in my opinion, as soon as this core finishes coming up, he'll be a better GM than Don Maloney. And I hold Don Maloney in very, very high regard. I very much respect Don Maloney. So it's you finally have that management.
I will say this, when we were in the Chaika administration, I felt like a lot of times I was just telling myself, trust in the process, indoctrinating myself into it, right? In this iteration of the administration, I don't think I've ever said that. I don't think I've ever said trust in the process, because I see the process and I see it plain as day, and I don't need to remind myself the process because I see it working perfectly. And perfectly as expected. I'm not head scratching going, okay, we traded for Marcus Kruger and then traded Marcus Kruger to the Blackhawks for Vinny Hinostroza, right? Like weird trades that I'm just like, okay. Like,
but that got me like 100-view video because I was like, oh, did they trade Kruger just to flip him to Chicago? Which is kind of what it sounded like, but it's still really weird. Like, why don't you just acquire Hinostroza?
Yeah, I mean, I liked Hinostroza. I didn't dislike Hinostroza, but it, just weird trades that you're just like, okay, trust in the process. Like, I don't know what's going on, but trust in the process, right? But then, you look at everything that Bill Armstrong's done. I don't think I've ever said that. I may have said a little bit with the OEL Garland trade. Because you're like, who are we getting at number 9? Is that really like that was the draft where everybody's like, oh, this draft's not that great, And then it's like number 9. It's like, well, who was taken at number 7 with our pick that we traded to the Rangers for Stepan Ranta? Elias Anderson. He ain't even in the league anymore. And he was number 7. And we're trying to go at number 9 in a weak draft, right? Why are we doing this? This is a little risky, but so far it's working out pretty well. I would say Dylan Guenther's looking A-okay to me.
That is like, because Chaika, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. I also kind of have similar feelings like a Mike Hazen type, but it's like, so many of these moves looked so good on the surface. That Kessel trade looked phenomenal. That Hall trade, I know people had criticisms of it, but I thought it looked phenomenal. And literally none of those assets have really panned out for New Jersey. I think Ball is the best of the assets, and he's what?
Mercer's definitely been pretty good.
Well, I'm talking about the named players. I'm not talking about the draft pick.
Named players. Ball is the only one that's left. I think Schnarr went in that trade too.
Yeah, it was Schnarr, Ball, I think someone else. Yeah, you're right about the draft pick. I was only Nick Merkley, but I was only focused on the named players. I think Merkley ended up going to San Jose anyway. Yeah, I think he played with Lane Peterson for a little bit. And now Lane Peterson is in Carolina. Take care from Carolina. But it's like, these trades, they looked great at the time, or they sounded great at the time. Or it's like, oh, you're getting these guys, you're adding to the core, it looks good. And then how many of them did not work out? Kessel did not work. You couldn't even get assets to flip him. Hall, you lost him for nothing. Hinostroza, what, they released him, or they let him go in free agency, or was that a minor trade that we didn't get anything back
I think
for?
It was a minor trade. I want to say it was something small. I could be wrong. Maybe we let him go. I don't remember.
And then also he started off with like the getting Derek Stepan, who was always a number 2 center. He was never a number 1 center, but that's supposed to be our number 1 center. So it's like all these big, splashy, sexy moves that did not work out in the long run. I know Ranta had some great, some great little stints, but he couldn't stay healthy. So if you're only playing, I think it was an average of 13 or 12 games a season, that's not going to do anything for you. It just isn't. So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, he might have been good when he played, but that's not good enough when you're not even playing a quarter of the season. So it's just that doesn't count. But all these big sexy moves, and they all blow up in our face, and we're lucky that we got Josh Doan for Derek Stepan. That was the best we managed to get out of all these assets that we got that blew up in our face, that we had to sell low on or eat and let him go for nothing. We got Josh Doan out of it, out of all of that. And look, I love Donor, but in the grand scheme of prospects, he's not anything special on the NHL level right now. He's just special because we love him in this market, and he's doing very well in ASU. Now with BA, how many trades have you looked at like, huh? Like you're kind of questioning it, but then you actually look at it and you're like, okay, I see what you're doing here. That OEL trade, everyone's first reaction, look, I didn't like it either with Garland. I was in denial about the rebuild, and every one of us was like, what, huh? And then like you said, what are you doing at that number 9? And we got a gem. We got a gem. He was trading picks, in the draft. Oh, now we get Connor Geeky. People still want to question it. He's looking phenomenal in Winnipeg this year. Got Lamoureux. We got these other guys, a lot of depth guys. He picked up J.J. Moser in the draft, and I think that was a flipped asset. We ended up getting an additional second-round pick for that asset. Like, these trades, when they're happening, you can see what they're doing.
Fedotov, look at the second rounders. Fedotov, Lutz, right? Like, all these guys, they're above what you'd expect from a second rounder, which is great. That's what we want to see out of our second rounders. You just want one of those to hit. If every single one except for one busts, but you get, like I've said in the past on the show, you end up finding that Sebastian Aho in the second round, you're laughing straight to the bank with it. Like you are absolutely loving it. I do want to say though that going back to that trade with Taylor Hall, we brought up Nick Merkley. Do you know where Nick Merkley is currently playing this year?
No. The last I know, he was in San Jose 2 years ago. That's the last I knew of him.
Nick Merkley is currently playing in the KHL with Dynamo Minsk.
Oh, I didn't even put him in my list of former Coyote KHLers, but
yeah.
I have no idea why I was thrown so heavy off my trail of what I was gonna do. What were we talking about before? Just restart me. Turn me off and turn me back on again.
Okay, so we were talking
Second
about...
rounders. Okay,
yeah,
so
second rounders.
Second rounders cost less than first rounders.
Yep.
But because how good the hockey pool is out there, and if you have good enough scouts, and they are doubling, tripling down on the Euro scouts, and it's working out so far, the second round picks can yield the same as first round assets, just not as often, because you're not getting the projected top 32, you're getting a little bit lower. Hey, this guy might have dropped off. He could have the Russian factor, could have this. Maybe he had one down year, but this talent's still there, so we'll pick someone else. Like, they're easier to get, they're cheaper to get, and you have a very good opportunity to get a similar caliber of player as most first-round picks. At the very least, your bottom 15 or bottom, 14, whatever first-round picks, you have a decent enough chance of getting a similar player, if not a better player, for a lesser price. Because they're just kind of tossed around here and there. So you see a guy you like in the second round. Like, one person asked me on Twitter today, how come we didn't take, Matthew Nyes in that second round in the draft? And I'm like, because we got that kid Ilya Fedotov. And I was looking at it. I know he's only ranked because I think he has, it was like 11 goals or 9 goals. 9 goals so far in the KHL in 23 games. When I was looking through, I think he's ranked like 71st or whatever. He's the youngest player on that list. And I'm looking through, everyone else is former NHLers, guys that could have made the NHL that stayed loyal to Russia, or it didn't work out, but they still dominate. Dmitry Yaskin is tied for the league lead with 29 goals. Former Coyote, Jordan Wheels 71. Fedotov is somewhere around, he has 10 goals. Brandon Yep, former Coyote, is tied for 8th with 18. So it's like, he's playing with men. This is a 19-year-old kid playing with men, and he's still producing at a pretty decent clip. That's someone that, when they make the jump to North American hockey, can easily be a top 9, middle 6 player. And for a second-round pick, if you can get that, that is good asset management. That is.
Yep.
Like, if you can get an everyday NHLer with a first-round pick, it might not sound sexy, but if you can get, a middle six player that's with you for 10 years in the first round, most people, as long as it's not a top 5 pick or whatever, most people will not complain.
Yeah, I just talking about assets, man. I don't know. I'm just like running in my head about assets that we could get for Chikrin, and I'm just like, man, Matthew Nyes, I want him. I want him, man.
Look, I'm just saying, how long until we have Cutter Gauthier, Matthew Nyes, Tage Thompson? Look, if hockey doesn't belong in the desert, fine, you're entitled to that opinion.
Then we won.
But if you are cheering for a team that has an Arizona-born player or an Arizona product or someone that grew up there, like, both Tkachuk brothers were born here. Now, they are St. Louis boys, they grew up there, but they're both Arizona-born. If you think hockey doesn't belong here, if you were born here or you were developed here, maybe you don't belong anywhere else in the NHL but on the Coyotes,
give us
and we
our
can have a dynasty.
Give us our Arizona products back then. Thank you very much.
It's one of the most base things Leah Merrill ever said for PHNX, where it's like, I guess if hockey doesn't belong here, give us our Arizona products back.
Yep.
Especially with, like, Toronto and Buffalo, especially have some of the more toxic fans that will, like, scream from the heavens how trash Arizona is, yet both of your best players, including your best prospect, Toronto, are Arizona products.
Yep. Can't resist the flavor, the forbidden fruit. You so disgustingly, begrudgingly hate.
All right, so I do want to ask you maybe one last topic before we sign off for the day.
we gotta speed run this topic because we are over an hour. So it is. Let's just say we're recording this one late Saturday so that it can go up on Sunday, and it is.
It's funny. I didn't know I didn't have to go into work till 2 tomorrow, so we could have done it tomorrow. I was trying to be proactive when I texted you before I got the information. But anyway, so with this rebuild, and it's looking like yeah, we finally have the bottom falling out a little bit because, again, we don't have the NHL level depth to compete with the big boys, and you want to tank right now. Mm-hmm. Do you think that we could be competing for a wild card as soon as next season? I do. Doesn't mean they will, but I do think they can. And if so, depending on who gets traded in and out, and how, let's say, Vancouver could use some cap space, would you mind trying to reacquire a guy or two, like a Connor Garland, for this core, or do you think that bridges like that are burnt, and would you want to look forward to a different asset coming here?
Sorry, you kind of, was that Connor Garland you said?
Connor Garland, yes.
Okay, I was reading lips, so I'm glad to know that my lip reading was pretty good. Man, it's tough because you look at Michelli and you go, man, they play such a similar role. And it's tough because we keep looking at the wings. It's like, where are we going to put all these wingers? We have so many flipping wingers. Like, let's run down the list. Schmaltz, Keller, Michelli, Fisher, Krauser. Right? Like, I'm sure there's a few more that I'm missing. Like, there's so many wingers that we have on this team that are like skill wingers. I don't think we need him. I just don't see a place for Connor Garland where I go, you deserve this spot more than Matthias Michelli. You deserve this spot more than Dylan Guenther, right? Like,
there's Gunner. Yeah, you forgot about Gunner.
Yeah.
He belongs in the first line, by the way. Look, I'm just saying I wouldn't mind Keller and Gunner.
So
but
if there's
Michelli, Gunner, and Bukestad play well together.
And you look at, once again, if this is next year, if the Coyotes receive one of those top 3 picks, so a Fantilli, Carlson, or Bedard, and then you also have Logan Cooley potentially coming in next year, just slap in more that there's going to be on this team. That it's like, where does this all fit? And it's a good problem to have. It's a great problem to have. This is a problem that we haven't had in a long time. Let's be real. There's been a many years where I go, okay, so you're going to slot in here, you're going to slot in here, and you're going to slot in here. And an opening night roster looks exactly like that. So I'm glad that we have this problem.
Now, would you, let's say, sell really low on Schmaltz, free up cap space, obviously, and then have...
Yes.
Look, I would because Garland's a favorite player, and I know I'm stretching a little bit because I want Garland back. And also, you can't tell me Garland and Michelli playing together wouldn't be interesting. I don't know how well it would work. It might work flawlessly because Michelli is also really good at passing, so is Garland, where they both have good shots. So, like, you might have one night where Garland wants to pass more, Michelli's a snipe, vice versa, so you have to keep the team on their toes. It also could end horribly. But I'm just saying, I know I'm stretching for an excuse to get Garland back, but I don't mind helping Vancouver keep their captain. I don't mind providing a service,
Yeah.
It's already been in rumor mills, but do you think that bridge could be burned? Because I'm going to assume the reports are true, we're just going to run with it, that he wasn't even contacted about an extension and BA was just working on that trade.
Yeah, I think that's probably what happened, and I think that realistically, I don't think he's ever coming back to the Coyotes, which is really unfortunate because we liked him as a fan base, but I don't think he probably likes the franchise. If I were to guess, I obviously don't have any inside information, but if that is true, that you're not even going to contact somebody about, hey, I'm not even going to give you a contract, we're just going to explore trading you. Like, you can't even give them that answer. That's pretty messed up, especially for a guy who loved the team, even with how spotty the fan base has been, let's be honest, right? He still loved playing here. He loved being in front of the fans that were there and supported the idea of hockey in the desert. And that's something that, we poo-poo on La Canadiens for every player must be Quebecois. The Coyotes do have a similar problem in that we have to find players that actually care about Arizona and give a damn and want to win. It's one thing to be, not to be rude, it's one thing to be Michael Grabner and going, hey, it's beautiful here and I'm still getting paid $4 million for 3 more years. Right? There's money plays a role, and I love Grabner, but there weren't really any things that I was like, he's coming here to win, right? Like, he wasn't talking about winning. He was just wanted to be here because he thought the weather was pretty. And it's a benefit, don't get me wrong. And we can sell with that. We got Michael Grabner, who I liked as a player, but we also want those players that are like, I want to win here, and I want to win now. And that's something that, is a really tough part with the Coyotes. It's something that, we have to ask our players coming in. If you're another team, obviously any player is going to want to go and play for the vast majority of teams in this league. And unfortunately, that's a question that we have to ask some players, and especially prospects, as we heard from even prospects that we picked up, in the most recent draft. I think Geeky had a quote in one of the interviews where he was talking about Bill Armstrong was interviewing him, and he's like, they asked me, do I want to win here? Or do I want to play here? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. And that's what you want to hear. You want to hear a prospect that's excited to go and play in Arizona, even no matter what the situation is.
And the necessity for that just to kind of wrap it up, the necessity for that question really shows how much damage poor management and ownership has done to this franchise, because it's a great location. There is a great fan base. Obviously spotty. Obviously there are plenty of criticisms, but it's still a passionate fan base. But also just to show up here, like, we have to ask that, and we won't even draft you if you don't want to be here. Like, Shane Wright very likely didn't have interest. Like, I already told you that insider source that I had that spoke to him directly about where he wanted to go. I know where he wanted to go, still won't reveal that publicly.
Yep.
But very much I was communicated, not with an exact quote from him, but it was communicated to me that he had no interest in going to Arizona. Yet you got Logan Cooley over here, who is still, in that draft, the most offensively electric. I don't know if he's going to have the best career, but he's looking pretty good so far, saying, like, before the draft, yeah, I like Keller, I like the game, I like the market. Like, he was just gushing about the franchise, and that's the guys you want. Mm-hmm. Like, unfortunately, like, if Connor Bedard looks like he's a good kid. Everything I've seen about it, every interview.
Yeah.
When they won the gold, he's talking about, oh, this is for the boys. We're talking about winning. We're not talking about me. And when it's like, oh, hey, you go Eric Lindros 2.0, he's like, no, I'd be happy with any team that drafted me. Obviously, it's the politically correct thing to say, but he seems genuine. It feels genuine from him.
I haven't seen any ego with him at all, which is generally what's going to kill the Coyotes, is egoism from players, right? Why should I go to the Coyotes? I'm too good to be in the Coyotes, right? If you're an NHL kid, if you're an NHL caliber kid, I was going to say an NHL kid, which wouldn't have made sense. An NHL caliber kid, you know, you're just happy to get drafted anywhere. But there are some players that we saw and we see with this franchise, Blake Wheeler, yeah, Blake Wheeler, that refused to play here because of the ego. And that's one of the more important parts that the Coyotes are going to have to scout for as well, is ego.
But then again, you also, I can't, obviously, you criticize them all you want. It was still, like, unprofessional. But with how poorly the team was ran back in 2005, I think his draft year was 2004, 2005, would you have wanted to sign here? Would you have wanted to be, drafted by this team at that point if you were his caliber of player?
Well, I mean, the team had just gotten a new arena. It was fairly close. It was before the, like, whole franchise going under, right? Because it was before...
Yeah, it was like half a decade before.
Yeah, so it was before the stock market crash, which is what honestly killed this team. Well, put it on life support, shall we say. Because it's not dead yet. Copium. We might get...
We're walking.
This corpse is walking to a brand new ICU in Tempe soon, okay? So, no. We'll get this turned around. I believe in the plan. The master plan looks pretty good, and I'm happy to see what they're doing. But before this team went on to critical life support, they were doing all right. They had just moved into a new building. They put Wayne Gretzky, the greatest player of all time, in charge as their head coach. Like, obviously, he wasn't
coaches of all time.
I know he wasn't one of the, but at the hype, right? There's hype there for him coming in and being your coach. Like, you're like, holy crap, and he still refuses to sign, which is really weird. Like, in that context, there was no like instability, incompetence going on yet in that kind of time period. And that's what really poo-pooed the fans. Like, if somebody were to do it when the team when the team was owned by the NHL, I would be less mad. I would be less mad because I'm like, bro, like, this team is a clown show. Like, what is going on here? I don't want to play here, and that's fine. I would have been a little bit more fine with that, but just the year was just so odd. And then my favorite part is that the Coyotes were eventually in the playoffs in 2010, and Blake Wheeler was on the Atlanta Thrashers. Justice is served a little bit there, big guy. You get what
he goes to the fake Jets.
Yeah, you get what's coming to you when you refuse to play for one Mickey Mouse team and go to get to play for another Mickey Mouse team.
But anyway, to try to go back to wrapping it up when it comes to the prospects and this market, where it's like now. I love the approach. There is, obviously, that perspective you brought up where it kind of sucks it did have to get to that point, but I still love the approach. We won't draft you if you don't want to be here. So it's like, Shane Wright very likely did not want to be here. Cooley's gushing about it. You bring in Cooley. I know Geeky, he was also speaking some pretty nice things. So it's like, if you want to be here, great. Now, we do have that one dilemma. Well, let's just say Connor Bedard is the greatest actor of all time. This humble persona, but like he's like, let's just say it's Carolina, Florida, and Arizona, just to pick three small market teams. Those are crap holes. I would never want to be there. It's in the back of his head, right? So, like, GMBA, let's say we get the first overall pick. We would be in one of the weirdest positions. I feel like Bill Armstrong has the nuts to not draft Bedard number one if he said, like, something as egregious as no F the market or whatever, I don't want to play for you. But
man, I don't know. With how many assets you could get for Bedard, if he did Lindros it, I think you would still draft him just because of the assets that you could get in return.
He would trade the pick. He would trade that.
Yeah,
pick
you'd either draft you either draft and trade Bedard, or you would just trade the pick before you drafted.
But what it comes down to, it's like, if that were the case, and again with cooperating with my inside source on the right thing, where it's like, if that were the case, they at number one, there's still a possibility they wouldn't draft him, or they would trade away the pick and get the asset. So it's like,
I'll tell you this right now. I'll tell you this right now, Matt. Bill Armstrong will never say, "Screw you, I'm taking Fantilli over Bedard at number one." I will tell you that
You
right
would
now.
trade
The
to-
value,
You would
the
trade
value.
to 2 and then
Yeah.
get extra assets. You trade back 1.
Yes. You would never take because the value proposition to Bedard right now versus Fantilli is massive. It is so massive. And if you're handing that value off to number 2, you're blowing it. You know,
It would be a joke. Even Adam Fantilli can win 3 cups for you, but if Bedard wins 4, you're always looking at it like, why the F didn't you take him?
Yeah, yeah. Fantilli could be a future Ring of Honor in the Coyotes, and has his name retired to from the rafters. But you'd still be looking back and going, why did we take him at 1 when Bedard went at 2 and is playing as well or not, if not better than McDavid? Which I know it's a little hyperbolic, but man, dude, from what I'm seeing of that kid, I think he's
bought
up
into
there,
the
man.
hype. And I still believe that you don't have the guaranteed chance. Like, they can get the best odds and still lose out on Bedard, and that is still a possibility that could happen. You guys know I accept that possibility. You know, and I'm still in on the Bedard hype because he is just that special. But I also think
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. We need to finish up, and I'm just gonna keep rambling, and so just please go.
Anyway, but I also think that the shift in the franchise, getting guys that want to be here, would also, let's just say, if this was last year, Bedard says no, doesn't want to come here. But now with how this new way of looking at it, like if you want to be here, we want people that want to be here. We won't take guys that don't want to be here. It creates that better culture. You try to create a winning culture. You try to do it from the ground up the proper way. That also could be enough to sway a guy like that. Even if he did say no, which I don't think he would. He sounds like a very humble kid. So it's like just this franchise is kind of unrecognizable in so many good ways. To where it's like again, going back to what you said earlier in the podcast, you can see the vision and it's actually showing. And whether or not we get that cup, I still think we're 2025 champs. I'll stick to that meme until 2025 happens. But it's, whether we get it or not, I can see the vision very clearly. We're already bearing fruit. We're already getting, as of right now, I still got 10, 20 drafts, whatever. We have the best individual performance by a Coyotes prospect in World Juniors history. We have a golden goal from Guenther that's also looked really good at the NHL level. We've managed to essentially trade Garland for Garland but more skilled, Garland but with the Doan last name, and then we already had Garland but he's a lefty in our system.
Now, question: if we do sign Matthews to like a 15 million or 12 or 18 million whatever super max deal, what ends up happening when those other guys need contracts? If everything goes right, and Cooley blossoms, and maybe if Fantilli blossoms, and you're looking at all the money that you're gonna have to pay for those two, and you got Austin Matthews who you're paying super money to, what do you do then? Do you end up biting the bullet and having to trade one away?
Yeah. Let's just say odd man out. As much as I love Fantilli, because Guenther, I already have an attachment to him because Cooley loves the market so much. Let's just say it's Fantilli. Yeah, because you're still selling high. You're not. I don't want $40 million in 4 players.
Yeah.
Obviously, cap's going up, so the equivalent would be like $50 million. But still,
Yeah.
I don't want that super top heavy where everything else suffers. We are not a big enough draw as Toronto to get a Giordano to sign for super cheap. Even though he's past his prime, he's still a good defenseman.
Yeah.
So it's like, we don't have that draw. So it's like, you have to be smart, and as much as it would suck, as long as you're maximizing... Like, I've always wondered how come teams that have these dynasties never hold on to their first-round picks, continue to draft well, and essentially, this guy's aging out, we can trade him as high as possible, this kid's coming in. I don't know why no one's ever actually stuck to that model. It's always been, we have this core, we trade away everything, and then you have to go through a rebuild later. Like, we would be in such a good position, I wouldn't mind losing a Fantilli. Not Bedard, but a Fantilli, a Mitch Cobb. I would not mind losing that because we would already have such a good core that you're using that smartly to get more assets, to keep developing those assets, to make this as perpetual as you possibly can. Essentially, make it like a water-cooled water cooler unit for a CPU. It's all closed. It's the same water being recycled through, and it's keeping your CPU cold, and it's keeping it running perpetually until eventually something goes wrong and it blows up. But you're gonna get, let's say, 15 years as opposed to 5.
Yep.
That's
All right.
where I'm at.
All right. I'm gonna elect to adjourn this meeting, and no.
Jared.
I was thinking of trying to poke a hole in the whole Congress thing going on right now, but I'm gonna elect not to.
I'm gonna elect. Oh, so political, Richie. God, you. Which one are you today? I'll call you a commie today. You commie.
Thank you. All right. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, please give us a like, a follow, subscription on whatever platform you're listening to us on. See you guys.